It seems like these days, a lot of young men are very directionless. There's this quote that everyone cites, and it's like, oh, does art reflect culture? Does art reflect reality or whatever? I think entertainment can be very reflective of reality. Oftentimes, YouTube can also be very reflective of reality. And I notice a particular trend going on right now. And that trend is basically that everyone seems to be looking for an internet father figure these days. Everyone seems to be looking for some kind of guide, some kind of spiritual life, career kind of guide to give them advice and, stand in place of like a dad and kind of give you advice on what you should do.
Now think about your dad. What's your dad like?
There's a decent video about this from someone named Link on YouTube, you guys probably know of. He made a video about internet father figures. He also posted a more recent one about how influencers are modern day cult leaders, which is an interesting watch if you have the time. But in a nutshell, I think that because there's kind of an absence of religion in our culture today. There's an absence of, in real life community for a lot of men, especially more online men who are obviously more detached from reality. Maybe they're not going to, sports events, IRL, or they're not hanging out with people. They don't have a real friend group. And as a result, they turn to escapism through the internet for a sense of community. I think that a lot of guys are lacking structure in their life. They're lacking discipline. They're lacking direction, and they're kind of looking for someone to tell them what to do. And there's a lot of people that have popped up in the last few years to kind of take place for that kind of person, right? One, decent example a lot of people would cite is Jordan Peterson, the whole clean your room guy who, I think he got addicted to benzos or something, and then he did like a carnivore diet, and he looks like a shriveled up prune now. But I mean, Jordan Peterson is someone who, I've seen a certain amount of his content. I've seen some of the stuff he's done, and he has some good lectures. He has some good advice in terms of personal advice. He has a lot of good insights into psychology and stuff like that. I think when speaking about culture as a whole, maybe he's not the greatest analyst, but overall, I mean, there's no doubt that he's a smart dude. He's smarter than the average person, and he certainly does have some guidance. And there's a lot of other YouTubers that have popped up since his kind of explosion to the forefront, who are, I would not say right wing necessarily, but they're sort of part of a new age of thinking. It's kind of like a return to tradition type thing, and it basically just comes down to don't be weak, don't be soy. You need to go to the gym, you need to make money, you need to make yourself a better man. It's a lot about self-improvement and stuff like that. And I think there's nothing wrong necessarily with that kind of content. I mean, certainly telling young men to go to the gym and learn how to make more money and learn how to invest and get good life skills, I think that's definitely all stuff that a lot of people need to hear right now. And it kind of seems like stuff you should just be able to learn from your literal father. It's kind of strange to me to see a lot of guys online seeking guidance through YouTubers, and not because I can't relate to it at all. I mean, I've certainly watched a decent amount of self-help content in my time from various YouTubers and personalities that I like and relate to, and I've seen their advice. I mean, when it comes to YouTube stuff and YouTube expertise, one person I always turn to is Mr. Beast, because every podcast Mr. Beast does is filled with tons of YouTube advice, because that guy doesn't have a lot of time. He's a very busy dude, and when he does go on YouTube or podcasts, one of the main things that YouTubers want to ask him about is how he's so successful, how he has such a great work ethic, how he's so famous, because they want to, get some of that knowledge. And that's just one example. I mean, there's people I've looked to for weightlifting advice on YouTube. There's people I've looked to for, just more general life advice as well. But one thing that's confusing to me is I feel like something happened where a lot of people aren't turning to their actual dad. I know that there is kind of a fatherlessness meme going around right now, but realistically, I think most people probably do have a father presence in their life. 70 to 90% of people probably have an actual biological dad, or even a stepfather who's been there for a while and is a decent presence. And some people's dads are shitty and they're not great people, and maybe they're not great role models, but a lot of people have great dads that I feel like they're not, taking advantage of. And the fact that this is a guy who's 50%, you, he's a 50% genetic copy of you. You literally came from him. He came and then he made you, right? You're literally the spawn of his seed. So he has a lot of the same emotions and experiences that you do, closer than any of these YouTube people will ever have as far as biology. And he also has probably 20 to 30 to even 40 more years of life experience than you have, which can be very helpful in terms of actually learning how to operate in the world. In my limited experience, the most valuable thing that I've seen people get is life experience, is go through hardship, is go through tough times, is go through the ups and downs of life, the roller coaster of life, the the struggles, the highs, the in-betweens, the minutia. People who experience more of that overall obviously have more knowledge on how to deal with it and how to encounter the many issues you may as a young man. And so I feel like turning to your actual father is a decent way to go about things. And it seems to be a thing that a lot of people are averse to or just straight up aren't doing. You're looking for an internet father figure, bro. You got a father at home. He can give you plenty of great advice, unless your dad's a complete deadbeat piece of shit. in which case, you know, I don't totally blame you for seeking out a lot of these YouTube type people. But I think the thing you have to acknowledge is motivations. People's motivations are extremely important when you take into account the advice they give, and their motivation and their point of view and perspective does not necessarily discount the things they're saying. It doesn't necessarily write it off. And I you know, I'm not one to try to use ad hominem attacks, at least when I can avoid it. I'm not one to use ad hominem attacks to completely discredit someone's opinion or something like that. But at the same time, you have to take into account their perspective and their motivations for saying the things they say when you're taking their advice. Let's take someone like Hamza. Now, Hamza's an interesting dude. I mean, he's got 2 million subscribers. I haven't watched a ton of his content, to be completely honest with you. I've probably watched like 10 to 20 videos, but I have like a decent idea of what he's all about and what his ideals are, the things he likes to talk about. And I like this guy's, you know, whole bit. I like his content. I think he gives some great advice, but there's also some things you have to take into account. First of all, Hamza is not doing this in a completely virtuous sense, and he's probably open about that, right? Obviously, he's not doing it in a completely virtuous sense. And what I mean by that is that he's making money off of it. It's his job. It's his job to, you know, make these advice videos. And at this point, it's like, okay, he's got, let's see here. On his main channel, Hamza Ahmed, he's got 2.13 million subscribers, and you go to his videos tab, and he's uploading relatively often, like every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, and they're long videos too. They're very long videos. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of good advice in here, but realistically, at this point, like, the dude is doing it to make money. There's only so much advice you can give. He's probably repeating a lot of the same stuff over and over again, just because of the fact that, you know, he's made it his job and he has to upload consistently to continue making money, which is totally fine. I'm not like begrudging him for that. I mean, I upload consistently to make money. But when you're giving advice, there's only so much you can give before you kind of start going down the minutia. And I think being completely obsessed with the self and being like narcissistic like that is probably a bad idea. Versus, I've personally found that focusing on my external surroundings, as far as like the things I can affect, the things I can change from like outside of my own body and outside of my own physical state, focusing on that can oftentimes bring kind of solace and peace to my inner conflict within myself. So not focusing so much on my physical appearance and focusing more on the actions I'm doing will oftentimes lead to my physical appearance being better overall, because I'm not obsessing over minute details. And that's just one example. But I mean, a lot of these self-help guys, you have to take into account the fact that there's like a market for it now. There is a market. There's a very easy way to make money doing this kind of content. And you don't even have to be particularly original, because there's a lot of things you can just say that, you know, guys are looking to hear, which is like, workout, porn is bad, OnlyFans is bad, become a high value man, don't watch porn, I guess, be like self-deterministic, be outcome independent, be focused on the process more than the definitive outcome, make the most money possible. Like, these are all good pieces of advice, but there's only so many times you can say it before it's like, well, at this point, you really need to watch more self-help content, or do you need to be helping yourself? And I've also found with a lot of advice and a lot of these lessons that like Hamza will give, or just people will give in general, I find the best way to learn is not by just hearing something from someone, it's by trial and error. I can't tell you guys how many times someone has given me a piece of advice, and I've taken it into account in my head and been like, yeah, that's true. And then when it comes time to actually make a decision, I completely disregard it in exchange for doing whatever I want, whatever I think is best in the moment, because of hubris. Because everyone has that, you know, that level of hubris, that level of false self-confidence. And then I make a mistake, I fall or whatever, you know, I fall in a big puddle, metaphorically speaking. Then I learn my lesson, because you really learn by failure. I found that the greatest lessons I've learned have been through failure, have been through, you know, the hard teachings of life, the hard consequences of life. And I think that self-help advice is good. It's a good starting place maybe, but it's not even close to the full picture. And I think that if you truly want to have like a good head on your shoulders, then you just need to go out into the world and learn how to make mistakes and deal with it. One sign to me that a lot of the self-help culture has gone a little bit too far is that people will call into my streams to ask me girl advice. Okay, dude, I'm fucking Turkey Tom, man. You should not be asking me for girl advice. Ask your dad. Straight up ask your dad. Ask your close personal friends. I don't know. Ask a female friend. Do not ask me. What could I, a YouTuber, possibly say to you about girl advice? Probably not that much. And the thing about a guy like Hamza or Fresh and Fit is a lot of the girls they're going to get are as a result of their social status as like a famous YouTuber or whatever, right? They're not working on like the same playing field as you or I. And also the relationship that someone like Fresh and Fit has with women is very different from like a more meaningful relationship you may be trying to have. Fresh and Fit, I wouldn't say they don't see women as people, but they do see women as like kind of like a dog on like a different like playing field where they're not quite on the same level as guys, and they believe that they like completely fit into different roles. While there are exceptions to the rule, it's like basically all women fall into like this one category where they're trying to get the highest value man and have like a totally cynical view based on their biology, which is just not the case. And also Fresh and Fit, like they're not in any long-term relationships. The whole point to their life is just like fucking prostitutes and escorts. Like they don't actually give a shit about any meaningful relationships with women. And I hate to go full like feminist libtard mode on this because, like, you know, I think Fresh and Fit, to their credit, have more valuable advice than most people will be willing to admit. I don't think they're complete dummies, but at the same time, a lot of the stuff they say is pretty ridiculous. And at this point, Fresh and Fit, you know, they've basically given all the dumb advice they could possibly give, and now they're just kind of continuing their grift to be like a show that talks about politics or something, and like hypocritically talks about the importance of free speech while also DMCAing people on YouTube, which I bring up every time I talk about them. But yeah, Fresh and Fit are fucking stupid, man. I really do not like them, despite the fact that I have to give like a middle ground opinion, which is like, you know, they do have some decent advice for guys sometimes. You know, even someone like Andrew Tate, like I appreciate the fact that he's encouraged a lot of young dudes to work out, because definitely, you know, working out has changed my life, and I know it's changed the personal lives of every guy I know who's actually started going to the gym. So that's like a positive of what he said. But it's also like the best advice that Andrew Tate gives is not advice you can't get anywhere else. It's like very, very basic, simple stuff that everyone should just know from their dad. And this kind of wraps back around to my central point of like, a lot of these YouTubers can give good advice. A lot of these YouTubers can be cool people, but you shouldn't allow your parasocial relationship with them, or your lack of like, you know, personal advice in your personal life, to make you solely reliant on what they have to say, because that's a horrible way to go about it. And this isn't the case for every guy who watches Hamza. I'm sure most people who watch Hamza are not like, you know, nuts or whatever, or not totally looking to him to be like their internet daddy. But at the same time, many of them are, and I've seen a lot of people on Twitter, on Instagram say pretty wild stuff, and on like Reddit say pretty wild stuff about these self-help guys. And it's like, dude, just take everything with a grain of salt. Sometimes things are not that deep, and sometimes things with these self-help dudes are way deeper than you think, you know? Like Fresh and Fit are not people who actually care about young men. That doesn't mean that everything they say can be written off, but they're clearly not people who actually care about young men. They care about enriching themselves, making money. And the same goes for someone like Andrew Tate, right? Andrew Tate claims to want to help young men. Meanwhile, his entire business model for 10 years has been destroying young men through the webcam industry, through the industry, through basically pimping out girls, which is why this whole human trafficking trial is taking place, right? Whether you think that's human trafficking or not, whether you think he should go to jail, the fact of the situation is that he has been profiting millions and millions of dollars over the past, 10 years or so from pimping out girls. And now he's reverse diagnosing the issue because he realizes there's a market for talking to young men and giving them advice, and making like viral TikToks and YouTube shorts or whatever that blow up and then get you into Hustlers University. Realistically, Andrew Tate is not a virtuous guy. He's someone who cares about himself. Maybe his immediate circle he cares about for the benefit of self-preservation, like him, his brother, his top hoes or whatever. But beyond that, he's not someone who really cares about the general population. Someone like Hamza is probably more in between, I would say. He probably cares more about his viewers than someone like Andrew Tate. But at the end of the day, I mean, he is using it as a way to enrich himself and make money. And I think that, some of his advice may not be totally coming from a good place. I see a lot of like Hamza exposed videos on YouTube now that I look up Hamza. Someone will have to fill me in on the deep lore behind this guy in the comment section, because I see like a video called Hamza is Lying to You, Why I Stopped Watching Hamza, Hamza's False Hope University. There's a lot of people who seem to have issues with him as of late. I don't really know what the deal is there. Someone will have to fill me in. The Brainwashed Cult of Hamza by Michael Drift, 1 million views. But yeah. Anyway, I just want to give like kind of a quick rant here about this topic. It's not like a totally coherent thought I have in my head, I guess, but I think that a lot of people need to take into account these internet father figures more critically, more carefully. And frankly, I think you guys should look for guidance in your personal life more than on the internet. Basic advice is good on the internet, but as far as actual like experience, there's nothing as valuable as actually living it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Leave a like if you liked it, leave a dislike if you disliked it, and bye. And if you liked this video, consider becoming a member. For $5 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts, unreleased videos, and the members-only Minecraft server. Thanks so much to all of my YouTube members who fund my content.